Welcome back to Coaches at Crown Brew Getting Coffee. I'm excited today for my guest, Al Way, legendary head football coach, baseball coach, softball coach at Harrisburg High School. And again, when I started this podcast, there were certain people like Mike Rood and Al Martin that I said had to be a part of this, and Al Way was certainly on that list. And Al, I want to welcome you today and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you.
Want to thank Crown Brew for letting us film here today. Want to thank Bill Swinford for being here for Ross today and taking care of the filming part of this, and Swinford Media Group. I want to thank my buddies at Adrenaline Fundraising for sponsoring this podcast and for helping me over the years raise lots of money in my football program, and they can help you if you're a coach or an organizational leader. You want to raise money for your organization or team, Adrenaline Fundraising, Jeff Scott and Matt would be great guys to work with. And just if you're curious as to what they can do, give them a call. I'm sure the screenshot there of their number and email address is on there for you. But we're going to jump right in and talk to a guy that I've been wanting to talk to on this podcast for a long time, and I want to welcome you and thank you. I know you're still coaching baseball. Yeah. You're in the middle of your beginning of your baseball season, so you took time out to get over here. So we're gonna make this hopefully worth a lot of people's while, because there's a lot of interest, and I've got a lot of people asking, when are you going to interview or have a conversation with Al Way? And today's the day, so welcome. So let's start off. I'm going to talk about your bio a bit. I've got, and you can correct, as I always tell them, you can correct me if I got something wrong on here, an amazing record of 198 and 81, 18 playoff appearances, 12 conference championships. You played in 2 Final Fours in 83 and 91, second place in 1980 and 1997, 2000 state champs. I can't wait to talk about that team and that season. You've been a part of football, softball, wrestling, and baseball. You coached softball to a 3rd place in state in 2005-2006, am I correct? I had a 60-6 record in softball. It's like no matter what you coach, good things happen. You were an offensive coordinator, post-head coaching at both El Dorado and Vienna. We'll talk about that a little bit. And I just want to say it's impressive what you've done and how you've done it. And I want to jump in now and talk about, let's start with where you grew up, and let's talk about your high school and your formative years as a young athlete.
Well, I grew up in Charleston, and of course, played Pony League baseball growing up. Really didn't have any organized basketball like they do today until junior high, and played in junior high. And in high school, I played football, basketball, and baseball. In basketball, I was, I guess, 6th man. All 5 of our senior starters played college basketball.
Oh, wow.
And Rex Morgan went to Jacksonville and played with Artis Gilmore, and played for the Celtics for 2 years. So I had some pretty good people around me. Plus, I was by far the shortest guy of the whole bunch. So needless to say, I didn't play a whole lot in basketball. I played shortstop in baseball and football. I started 3 years as an inside linebacker and 2 years as an offensive guard. Was second on the team in tackles as a sophomore and a junior, and I got hurt my senior year and missed 3 games, and I finished second again. And so my goal was to finish first my senior year, but I didn't make it.
Were there coaches in your formative years, those early years, that were influential for you, or was it something that maybe led to coaching because of a coach, and you said, hey, this is something I might want to do?
I just always loved sports.
Yeah.
Just growing up, it's something I wanted to do. It's something I really enjoyed. Yeah. And I was lucky. Our high school had a good program. I'm trying to think. My 3 years, we were 7-2, 8-1, and 7-1. And so that was really good. And basketball, I think we were 29-4 my senior year. Baseball, this is back in the days when you didn't play many baseball games. I mean, I think we played 16 games my senior year, and that's counting making it to the sectional and getting beat.
Oh, wow.
So it was just a different time in baseball.
Yeah.
But I was lucky. We had a good program, and I had a lot of fun.
Yeah. You go to Eastern Illinois University. Did you play college sports?
I played football for 2 years. This is back in the day when freshmen could not play at the varsity, so you
Right.
had a freshman team.
Right.
I started as an outside linebacker on the freshman team, and then they came up with the idea that they were going to move me to defensive back my sophomore year, and needless to say, I wasn't fast enough to play that position.
Right.
So my sophomore year, basically, I didn't play. You know, I was on the team and practiced. And then that winter, playing basketball, I just completely destroyed my knee.
Oh.
Cartilage, both ligaments,
Yeah.
and that was pretty well the end of my football career. I played baseball for 1 year and decided I just realistically wasn't good enough, you know. And so that was kind of the end of my college career.
I get that a lot too from coaches that say, when my playing career was done, I wanted to keep going, but it was the end. Coaching was the way to continue being a part of that love of sports.
Yes.
And for you would say that's true?
Oh, very much so, yeah.
So you graduate from Eastern,
Yes.
you're ready to go into coaching, your first job's at Effingham.
Well, I lucked out, you know, and everybody tells you this, the lucky parts of your career, things you really fall into, you know. I student taught at Effingham, and I taught under a guy named George Toller, who had played college baseball at SIU. Well, George was a driver ed teacher and the head baseball coach and assistant basketball coach. Well, he left that year to take a basketball job, which opened up the driver ed position. So I lucked out having student taught there, and I started Effingham as freshman basketball, assistant freshman my first year.
Yeah.
With Jim Maxiden, who was the head basketball coach, and assistant baseball coach. And after George had left, he recommended me for the head baseball job, but a guy that had been there for a while decided he wanted it. So I was his assistant the first year. The second year I coached sophomore football, again freshman basketball, and I got the head baseball job. Things didn't go real well the year before. And I lucked out again, had a great group of seniors. Glenn Brummer, who played for the Cardinals for like 4 or 5 years.
Of course.
Not only was he my best catcher, he was my best pitcher.
Wow.
And we went, I think it was 17-2, and got beaten in sectional by Mattoon. But just a super bunch of kids, and kids that loved baseball. And again, you know, I lucked out. After that, I had a decision to make. You know, could I stay at Effingham and coach baseball? And luckily, I got an interview at El Dorado. And Bose Adams, legendary Bose Adams, you know, Hall of Fame, field's named after him. Supposedly, he was getting ready to retire. And when I talked to the superintendent, he said, hey, if you can come here and coach the lower levels, we think you can step into the head job. And so I made that decision to go to a smaller school. And when I went to El Dorado, I took the head baseball job, which is another interesting story. The year before I got there, they had played 3 games. 2 regular season games that they lost by the 10-run rule. 1 game in the regional where they had to go get a kid out of study hall to have 9 kids.
Oh my.
That they lost by 10-run rule. And from the story the kids told me was the basketball coach was the baseball coach, said he'd walk outside and go, yep, looks like rain, and cancel the game. So my first year at El Dorado, I was freshman football, freshman basketball, and again, dropping names, I was lucky enough that Barry Smith, who played at SIU, was one of the freshman kids I had that year. And I had a really nice freshman group in basketball. And in baseball, I was allowed to schedule 12 games. And this is back in the day when you don't make up rainouts and you don't practice inside, you know. So we finished the year 5-2 and lost to Harrisburg in the first round of the regional. So my first year we were 5-3.
That's a big improvement.
8 games. Hard to imagine.
It is hard to imagine
Yeah.
how things have changed.
Yeah.
And no indoor practice.
Oh, no indoor practice.
No hitting cage inside, you know.
No L screen.
Yeah, right.
All of my pitching, I had to throw from 60 feet for batting practice, or else you move up any closer than that, you get killed, you know.
When I coached at Sparta, I was like you. We've talked on here many times. The new coach gets all kinds of coaching duties that you have to say yes to. I was I was pitching batting practice, and I felt really threatened a lot because some of the kids I was pitching to could really hit it, and one of them went on to be signed by the Atlanta Braves, Jason Kempfer. And I can remember pitching to him thinking, this is not safe. Where's that screen that I see the Major League Baseball guys use?
And how many balls do you take off your thighs and shins and ankles?
Yeah,
you know?
I think there were some prayers said on that mound because it was intimidating, and I was so glad when they called him up to the varsity very quickly because I was tired of pitching to Jason Kempfer. But there were others, and I felt like it was Russian roulette every day. Like, is this the day I get drilled? I can't imagine now doing that. But when you're young, you don't know any different. Back then, I didn't know any better. So I'm just chucking them in there. You do what you do. That's right. That's right. How long were you at El Dorado?
So I was at El Dorado 5 years. The first 3 years. The next year, I ended up coaching sophomores. So I did that for 2 years and stayed as head baseball coach and moved up to JV basketball. And then Bose made the playoffs the first year in the playoffs, which was, 74, right?
Yeah, I think so.
74,
I think so.
Okay. And then he retired. And so I luckily, I'd had a really good sophomore team that year. We were 8-1, and I got the head job. And so in 75 and 76, I was the head football coach.
And that experience, you spent 2 years there as a head coach at El Dorado.
Yes.
What kind of success did you have?
My first year, we were 6-3.
Okay.
The next year, we were 6-4, and you make the mistake of losing too many close games. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
And
Been
again,
there.
the old story about don't be the man that follows the man, right?
Yes, sir.
And so Frankfurt, I believe, won the South 7 that year. We had them down 20-7, scored again, and had it called back because the right end jumped, fumbled into the end zone the next play, of course. They throw a double pass for a touchdown, come from behind, and they end up beating us 28-20. We lost to Christopher 15-14 on a fake extra point where their 6'5" receiver went over my 5'6" defensive back and just basically took the ball away from him.
Right.
So we lost 15-14 there. We lost a 2-point game to McLeansboro, and lost to Harrisburg 19-14.
Wow.
So we finished 6-4, and that simply just wasn't good enough for the people at El Dorado, so I was no longer the head football coach.
You could have been undefeated. Think about it.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
And what's funny is that you remember the details of each of those because they're stuck.
Yes.
Yeah, they're stuck in your brain.
You know how it is.
I do.
You know.
And those are the ones you lay in bed and think, what if, and you had 4 in one season, just that close.
Oh, it's just
That's
so
rough.
frustrating.
Yeah, don't be the guy that follows the guy, be the guy that follows the guy that follows the guy, right?
But at the same time, if none of that happens, I'm never at Harrisburg.
That's the thing. That's the beauty of it. And so I love the fact that you know when you've been lucky at times, because some people won't admit that. I was many times, whether it was a coach joining my staff or a player moving in or a player not getting hurt, that I had to stay healthy. But the fact that you recognize that El Dorado situation, though it seemed awful in the moment, led to something really special.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so strange. We lost my first 2 games in 75, my first year.
Yeah.
And so needless to say, you're starting to really feel the pressure. In week 3, we play Harrisburg, and we beat Harrisburg.
Wow.
And that was the last El Dorado team to ever beat Harrisburg.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's a great story. That's
And another thing, this is so farther on down the line, which would have been even more ironic. When I retired in 2001, my last game was against El Dorado. So my first victory would have been El Dorado against Harrisburg, and my last victory would have been Harrisburg against El Dorado. Of course, I eventually came back and coached
that's
some more,
interesting. Yeah, that's really cool. You go to Harrisburg. Did you come in and you became the offensive coordinator?
Yes.
The first year.
Yeah, Ken Joggers. Ken was a good guy. We got along really well together, and he got the head job my first year in 77. And we had played some softball against each other in the summer, and he had talked to me about coming over and just saying, hey, look, I think it's a good situation.
Yeah.
I think you would enjoy it, and I just didn't know what to do. And I talked to my wife about it and everything, and finally, after talking to him, I decided to make the move, and along with becoming the offensive coordinator, I got to be assistant wrestling coach, which I had never seen outside of seeing a couple of matches in college, knew nothing about. And so when I'm sitting there with Gene Hale and Gene's going, hey, you're the assistant wrestling coach, I don't know anything about wrestling. You're the assistant wrestling coach. And so
you're going to learn.
That was my 2 jobs.
Yeah. So part of this, and there's so much about you that's identifiable. I mean, like, for example, when people think of you, not only do they think of success, but they think of the T.
Yes.
So, and you made that synonymous with Harrisburg football and with the Alway way of doing things. Where did that come from?
Came from El Dorado. Bose Adams had ran the T for
I didn't know
years
that.
and years.
Gotcha.
And I came out of Effingham, which was a wing T team. Okay.
Okay.
So I love trap. I mean, we've been a trapping team for years and years, But I had trap and buck sweep, and so I tried to implement that a lot with some power eye stuff. And Don Kingston, who was a long-time El Dorado guy, played for Bose, coached at El Dorado, and he just believed in the T so much that he kind of talked me through it with the rules and, hey, this is why you do this and everything, And so it became a combination of power eye and pro set and T, and it worked out.
Yeah. Did you, and again, this is jumping a little bit ahead. I've talked about your offensive philosophy. We'll just do it now because it's perfect. So the T begins at that point. And so you're going to start the T in 77 at Harrisburg. But you were doing it before.
I was running T at El Dorado, yes.
But it comes to Harrisburg in 77.
Yeah.
And so you run that the length of your career, even those times you came back. Obviously, the success speaks for itself. Was there ever pressure to change out of it when the spread offenses came along and the run and shoot and all this shotgun stuff? Did you feel pressure, or were you perfectly content saying, no, we're running the T?
Well, we adapted a little bit. I mean, we never became a spread team.
Right.
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And you teach what you know, what you believe in. Now, we became a pro set team, a trips team, ace, deuce, but a lot of that was throwing the ball.
Yeah.
And, it was enough adaptation to give different formations, give people different things to look at. But our basis was always the T and how we block stuff out of the T.
Yeah. One of the things I love about watching you coach, and I got to watch you coach in some all-star games, and your ability to gather 11 kids around you and implement something. We used it as a goal line offense in the all-star game. I loved watching you go through the rules and teach what you taught. I mean, it was just a clinic in watching a master class of a guy saying, okay, it's my turn now. And so the whole thing centered around you and those offensive starters. It was so cool to watch because there's no hesitation. You knew the system so well, the blocking schemes, the footwork. It was just, like I said, it was awesome to watch because there was, when you know a great coach, when you see them and there's no hesitation, there's very laser focus on this is how we do it.
Well, that goes all the way back again, another interesting story to my first year at Effingham. Now, I came out of Charleston, which was a wing T team, playing offensive guard. And so basically, I kind of knew what I did.
Yeah.
A lot of times, I didn't know what was going on behind me. I didn't know rules outside of my rules, of course. And so I get to Effingham, and Jim Accident, who was a head basketball coach for years there, he's the freshman coach. We're at practice one day, and he comes over and goes, what's he supposed to do on that play? Well, I'm flipping through, and I'll always remember this. He walks over and goes, hey, look, you got to know this stuff. You can't be looking this up.
Right.
You know how things like that stick with you.
I do.
And after that, it's like kids would say, hey, well, can you make us forms? And can you put play sheets? No, we're going to learn this on the field. Yeah. You're not going to pull your helmet off and look at what you're doing. You're going to learn what your rules are. And I've just always been such a believer in that, and repetition, repetition, repetition. And
I assume that your philosophy was keep it simple, repetition, execution, beats all that fancy other stuff. I mean, and you just, like I said, I know you did some variations, but you always came back to that base knowledge, that base philosophy of the tea, and I love when a coach is known for that and became synonymous with you. And so in 1980, state championship game, and I don't have it written down there, but is that against Morris?
Yes.
Yes. Tell me about that.
Well, of course, I wasn't the head coach. I was the offensive coordinator, which doesn't speak well since we got shut out, you know. But again, another great story. It's 7-0, and we're still basically in the game towards the end of the second quarter. We're not moving the ball, but we're still in the game. Well, our starting outside linebacker gets hurt and has to go out of the game. Well, they throw a little screen pass to their best running back. The backup outside linebacker comes flying in, and our inside backer's ready to make the hit.
Oh, no.
And just drills our kid, knocks him off. Kid goes about 50 for a touchdown. Game over. And they just dominated after that.
And that's a perennial powerhouse.
Yeah.
We played them in the playoffs, I think, in 2015, and we drove up there for a first-round game. And as soon as we get out of the bus, every one of their accomplishments is on a giant board, and it has championships, runner-up, Final Fours, and it's pretty intimidating to stand there and go, okay, boys, we're, you know.
When we went, the first year we made the playoffs in Harrisburg in '78, okay, and the first year I was with Ken, we went 7-2, and that was the first year that they'd won 7 games since 1951.
Ooh.
And of course, we hadn't won the conference since '51. Well, in '78, we won the conference, and we got rewarded to go to Danville.
Nice.
So we're on the sidelines waiting for the game to start, and here comes this kid running across the field who's about 6'3", about 220 pounds, with a Viking helmet on and a sword about that long, and he's just sprinting right at us.
Oh, no.
And you can imagine our kids are looking at this, and he runs over and he sticks that sword and screams at us, and our kids are kind of like this.
Game over.
Oh, it was not a fun experience.
That's great. You know, when I think some of our kids had that same experience early on at Carterville when Mike had the things rolling at Johnson City, and they would come out and, you know, had the Indian. And
yes.
It was intimidating. Some of that pregame fanfare when your program's not established yet, or maybe in over their head, it can be a daunting thing to get your kids past that. So that's a great story. After that championship game, you become the head coach the next year.
Yes.
1981.
Yes.
So then it begins. You felt like, I'm sure, I know what I want to do. I know how I want to do it. You borrowed stuff from every place you'd been, right? And then off you go.
Yeah.
So pretty big deal taking over again for you know.
Don't be the man that follows the man, right? I'm not very smart.
But I mean, it's a pretty easy decision. I'm sure they wanted to keep it in-house. Yeah. Obviously, you're qualified. I mean, I'm sure they loved you as an assistant coach and said, let's keep this thing in-house and let's keep rolling. And boy, you did. I mean, it.
Well, again, on that, I was so lucky that we had a great staff.
Yep.
And a staff that believed in what we were doing. And, you know, I've never been a guy to interfere with the freshman, sophomore coaches. I was so lucky in all my years. I never felt like I had to go to practice. Yeah. Games, I would be up in the press box, maybe talking to them on the phone if they wanted to. But that was their team and their job. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to coach. And I was just so lucky that, you know, and on that same line, as all my years as head coach at Harrisburg, I basically had 2 assistants. A lot of years, we had 2-man staff at the varsity.
Wow.
For up until '95, it was me and Greg Seagraves. And then after he got out in '95 and decided to go down to the lower levels when his boy came into high school, it was Greg Langley.
Sure.
And I was just so lucky that I had great assistants.
And that fit your style, and it worked where coaches had staffs of 10, 12, sometimes too many coaches. The simplicity of knowing this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it is awesome. Did you also think those lower level coaches, let them grow, let them figure it out, when you leave them alone, you're allowing them to make mistakes but learn from it and grow as coaches?
Well, as long as they ran our basic stuff.
Yeah.
then it was, hey, it's your job to coach this team. You know, again, going back to this, I was so lucky that they understood like what kind of kid wanted to be a guard, what kind of kid should be a tackle, what kind of kid should be a tight end. And normally they made good decisions on putting those kids in those spots. So as you know, being in Marion as long as you were, you got a kid from a freshman to a senior maybe playing exactly the same position.
It matters. And running that same system and doing what they're supposed to do, knowing their rules, knowing their footwork, that's really cool. And I think another thing, besides obviously the T, which your programs were known for, I think another thing that stands out to me is your coaching staff. You had such good coaches over the years, and they were all in for Alway's way of coaching.
Loyal,
yes, absolutely. And everybody could tell that, and there was no deviation from the plan and from the system. And when you've got all your staff on board, and they're talented guys, and they're willing to learn and be coachable as themselves, boy, good things can happen.
And the other thing where we were lucky is almost every one of them worked in the school system.
Yes, I agree with that.
You know, when you got to start going out and getting guys not in the system, a lot of times it doesn't work out very well.
Boy, it does help to have those guys in the building with you.
Yes.
Even some of them, if they're at the junior high, that's a nice, nice thing
see, Kyle
too.
McGowan's been at the junior high for years and years. And Kerry Maxim before him.
Yeah, right.
And those
my
are guys
neighbor.
that are down there talking to the younger kids, encouraging them to play football.
Absolutely. That's powerful. Because it's so many people involved in the singular focus and success of Harrisburg football. And as much as you deserve a ton of the credit, I know from my experience, man, it takes a whole bunch of other people.
You don't win by yourself.
No, you do not. And when guys like you and I get inducted into the Hall of Fame, we are dragging a whole bunch of people with us.
That is
because
correct.
our induction was their induction.
That's
and I
right.
know it's really, really cool. Final Four in 1983. You quickly knocked on the door again.
And again, you know, we're a 3A team, okay? Well, that's the year Chicago goes on school strike. So we get bumped up to 4A because all the Chicago schools get wiped out.
Right.
So we beat Mount Zion, and our reward, we make it to the semis, and we have to play Washington, who has about 1,500 kids. Yeah. And we gave them a good game. Missed a couple of chances to score, got beat 21-3. But, you know, it's one of those things you look back and go, well, if we were 3A, what could we have done?
Yep.
You know.
Yep. You, I put on my notes here, I put the Harrisburg Way, and we've already been talking about that. No pun intended, the Harrisburg Way. But I felt like another thing that Harrisburg was ahead of everybody else when it came to school scheduling, implementation of prioritizing athletics as a part of the school schedule.
Yes.
And I don't know if our viewers know all this. You had the freshmen to start the day.
Yes.
And nobody had more freshmen out for football, but they're in freshman PE, and they might as well practice with the football team. I mean, that had to be. So you had.
It really didn't work that way. This all goes back to Gene Hale. Okay. When Gene Hale came to Harrisburg, they were on a 0-27 losing streak. And I guess they finally decided, hey, we've got to do something. We've got to change our whole athletic program. Gene came in as the athletic director. He was allowed to bring a lot of coaches in with him. You know, Kerry Maxim, Ken Joggers, you know, Seagraves, all those guys came with him.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And he got the athletic program implemented, which was first hour athletics, which were all the freshmen. Now, we didn't practice first hour.
Oh, I thought you did.
Now, every now and then, maybe after, I'm trying to think, maybe after I got out of first hour, maybe somebody did. But when I had first hour for years and years and years, and it was basically, it was conditioning and weightlifting, and in the winter, everybody wrestled.
Ah, okay.
Even if you weren't on the team.
Right.
Because we were stuck in Bonnell Gym.
Yeah.
If you've ever been in Bonnell Gym, which is a really small. And so basically, I just taught them wrestling. That was their PE course.
But you've got them in the weight room.
Yes.
As freshmen.
And you've got the big kids running. They're learning how to run, and they're getting faster.
And nobody else that I know of is doing anything like this. But and I'm not saying no one's putting academics as a secondary thing. I'm saying you've time framed some time to develop kids.
It's their PE class.
Yes, and it's making a difference because Harrisburg's ahead of the curve. You're lifting weights and conditioning in the early 80s when no one else has reached that yet. And there was lifting programs, but not like this. And it's making a difference. And then, so you're getting kids hooked on that training. Yes. They're seeing their bodies change, I'm sure. They're getting stronger. And boy, it starts paying dividends for you, right?
Well, again, talking back about the big kids, have these great big kids as freshmen come out that really have never played basketball, never played baseball, and you get on the track and they're running the quarter in 99 or something like that. And by the end of the year, they're running 76, 77.
Yep.
And now it's not track speed, but for a 250-pound lineman or something, you're happy as can be.
Yeah. And other schools at that time were not developing that freshman kid like Harrisburg was. And I mean, it matters. And that leads to my next thought is that with the way you're doing things, and you got your athletes in PE and they're lifting and you're conditioning, we're talking about two at a time. It's the old South 7.
Oh, yes.
Tell me about the old South 7, because I know what it was. I was around coaching, but I wasn't a part of that.
Very physical.
Yeah.
Very physical.
Yeah.
Mike and I talk about this, Mike Rude and I talk about this all the time. I don't care who you played. You may beat them 30-6, but you pay the price.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean, you physically get beaten on. And this, of course, was back in the day when you're running the ball a lot more than maybe some teams do now.
Yeah, yeah.
But perfect example was Centralia. For years and years and years, nobody could beat Centralia. When they finally started to drop off a little bit, even if you beat them, they physically would beat you to death.
Yeah.
And staying healthy was interesting.
That's true. But and I'm sure the conditioning part of what you're doing in the weightlifting paid dividends in just staying healthy.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. But you're in the midst of this South 7, this competitive conference, and you're doing really, really well. And you end up, as I said, you go to the championship, or you're in the Final Four. Am I correct?
In 83.
In 83, and then you're back there in 97. Another team. Did you get to the point?
We made it to the Final Four in 91.
Oh, 91. I don't have that down there. Okay, I'm sorry, I missed it. So you're knocking on that door, Coach. I mean, and I mean this, as I've heard coaches say, knocking on that door, and I keep knocking on it. But did the thought creep in? Is this going to happen?
Well, that was one of the things that I guess so many times, like in 89 and 90, we make it to the third round, and who do we get? Belleville Althoff, and they win the state championship both years.
Right.
And then we lost a couple of really close playoff games to DuQuoin. And you're in your mind, you're sitting there thinking, it's never going to happen. We're lucky we're getting to the third round.
Sure.
We're never going. And then 91, we got beat regular season by Carbondale. And Carbondale ended up being ranked number 1 in the state in 4A that year.
Is that Seth Smith?
Seth Smith.
Yeah.
And the quarterback, Shillian, moved in from Heron, I believe.
I remember watching that team.
Big physical team. And they beat us at our place 21-13. And so we go 8-1, make the playoffs, and we get them in the second round. We beat Murphy the first round. And it's at their place. And, the atmosphere, you know how it is, you've been there. And we got down early, and Banks, my outside linebacker, got an interception, ran it back real far, and we scored and kind of got back in the game, came from behind and beat them. And again, there's another team that I felt like might have been a state champion team, but we're a 3A team. What's the IHSA do that year? They decide that you're going to play by the enrollment of the teams on your schedule.
Right.
So we're in the South 7.
Because Centralia, Carbondale, Mount
Vernon, Marion. So we get jumped to 4A.
Wow.
So we knock off Carbondale, it's undefeated, ranked number 1 in the state, and we go up to Jerseyville, and they're undefeated, and we beat them at Jerseyville. And then our reward is to go to Bloomington High School, 1,600 kids. We have 650. Their quarterback ends up playing for Purdue. They've got 5 kids that play Division I football.
Oh my gosh.
And in the coldest day I have ever played in my life.
Wow.
I mean, it's snowing, the snow's blowing sideways. Everybody is just, people are leaving to go sit in their cars because they're freezing to death. And we get beat 25-0, I guess it was. And again, that's another team that, it was such a great physical defensive football team. And you always look back and go, God, if we could have been 3A, you know.
I remember that, you know, and you mentioned the Althoff team. My first year, that was our first round game in 1990. We played them in the first round. I think DuQuoin played them in the second round, and I think you played them in the third. You played them better than we did. So, but yeah, you're right. But the run of luck you're getting in the bumping up, I didn't realize this kept happening to you. So yeah, and that's what I mean. It's a great story because I know what ends up happening. But I think about, man, is this going to happen? Are we going to make it? We're going to get over that hump. And you do. And let's talk about that team. Let's talk about your 2000 team.
Well, 97, we finished second. So we got close again in 97.
Yeah.
And 97, again, was a very, very physical team. We didn't throw the ball great.
Who beat you in 97?
Maple Park, Cane Lake.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. So in 97, you know, we make it to the state championship. We had a couple of really nice playoff wins against DuQuoin and Nashville. And Caneland, well, their wide receiver, who's the coach now at Minnesota,
PJ,
I think set the state record for receptions or something like that. And I remember my son, who's a defensive back on that team, he came off before the game, after like the first series, and said, God, Dad, these guys are good.
Yeah. They won back-to-back, didn't they?
Back-to-back.
Yeah.
They lost 8 starters on both sides of the ball from the year they beat us, and they came back the next year and beat Nashville in the state championship.
And now the head coach at Minnesota is that same wide receiver, PJ Fleck. Yeah. That's great. I'm sorry, I forgot. I looked at my notes. I skipped the 97 team, and I remember watching that game and watching PJ play. And you, not only did you run into some bad luck getting bumped, you ran into some really iconic teams in those situations. I mean, that was a great football team for those 2 years.
Well, you know, to be technically a 3A team, you know, to have to play Washington and Bloomington, and, you know, it's not ideal by any means.
Twice your enrollment, Bloomington. I mean, easily, right? What was your enrollment back then? Probably
we stuck around 650 pretty consistently.
Man. Even smaller than I thought.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big deal. To imagine 1,600 versus 650.
It was not fun.
No, sir.
And you know, the other thing, it's even weird how you remember things. The only way, they were the biggest school in 4A that year. And the only reason they made it in was because some Chicago private public league school dropped out and decided not to go to the playoffs or something like that.
You're kidding.
Yeah, it's just weird stuff like that.
Weird stuff is right.
Of course, we still would have caught New Trier or somebody, you know.
Yeah, somebody like that, yeah. So, 97, so glad you corrected me on that and talked about that 97 team. And then in 2000, did you know ahead of time that the 2000 team was going to be really, really good?
Well, I thought we could be. You know, the year before, we had opened up with a big win against Mount Carmel, at Mount Carmel.
Yeah.
And then week 3, Brashear broke his ankle. And then I lost one offensive tackle. Then I lost the other offensive tackle.
One of those years.
And we ended up being 6-3, and we go back to Mount Carmel, and those guys are all out, and Mount Carmel beats us, the team that we had hammered week 1. So very disappointing finish. But a lot of those kids were coming back.
Yeah.
And Brashear was going to be back. Jones, of course, was going to be back, and exceptionally smart group of kids.
Isn't that an underrated attribute, though? My championship team, people talk about the size and the speed, but they were the smartest team I ever coached.
Offensive line. You didn't have to tell them stuff over and over again. You know, you tell them the rules and they could figure it out. And just an exceptional group of kids to coach.
Gosh. And that's it. Character, intelligence, you know, some savvy.
Yes.
making adjustments.
And speed.
And speed.
Yes.
And that's the cool thing is you were in the T, but you could do things out of it with Braden
Yes.
and with Brad Brashear. I mean, there were things you could do. I have to tell you, it was one of the best high school football teams I ever watched.
Well, they were sure fun to coach. You know, and the other thing was, again, talking about smart, you know, we would put something new in that week and it would work for a touchdown.
Isn't that fun?
You know, and yes, it's so much fun.
Yeah. And there's other teams you don't dare do that.
Oh, no.
No, because
No.
you know that'll spell disaster.
You're still teaching them how to block straight 31, you know? I mean,
Yeah, that's cool. And so, was there a point in the season? Because at one point, Dennis Truss looked at me early in our '96 season and said, "This could be special." He said it way before I thought it, but he saw something that but he was right. Was there a point during the season where you thought, we're going to make a run?
well, you know, the opening game, we beat Mount Carmel 21-14. And not to knock Mount Carmel, they're always a great
always
program,
good,
you know.
right, yeah.
I didn't feel like we played very well. I didn't think I did a real good job. The next week, we beat DuQuoin 35-0. Now, DuQuoin's DuQuoin.
Right.
And so when you beat a team like that,
Yeah.
all of a sudden now you're thinking, hey, this is a pretty good group.
Yeah.
And after that, we were never challenged, you know?
Wow. Did that scare you, though? Do you worry that we're not being challenged? A lot of quick games, a lot of, and then we get to
Yeah.
the playoffs, and are we going to be, you worry about, because, I mean, we worry about everything, right?
I lost, week 2, I lost our best defensive tackle, lost him for the season. And luckily we had 2 kids step in, a 300-pounder that was a run guy,
Yeah.
and another guy about 210 that became, our sports guy called him sack master.
Yeah.
Because he had a knack of getting to the
Yeah,
quarterback.
that's cool.
So we lucked out there.
Yeah.
And offensively, we became a big play team.
Yeah.
You know, just score
Oh
fast.
my! And what's funny is you're in a ground and pound ball control offense, but you're scoring
Yeah.
fast, right?
Well, but we were throwing the ball
Yeah.
a fair amount. You know,
Yeah.
Kyle Smith-Peters, his stats that year, he threw for 19 touchdowns and 1 interception.
Wow.
You know, so
Yeah.
we
Again, smart kid taking care of the ball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, offensive line was big. You know, I mean, really big. We had 3 tight ends. They were all 215.
What about your fullback?
And fullback was a load.
Oh my gosh!
He
I
was
mean,
a load.
the two backs were great, but people forget how good the fullback was.
Which kept people honest.
Yeah.
You know, and defensively, you know, we gave up 2 touchdowns the first half of the Mount Carmel game. Our starters never gave up another touchdown till the second round of the playoffs.
I'll go back to what I said. One of the best high school football teams I've ever seen. I'm not counting 7A, 8A. I'm talking in our realm.
Yes.
It was.
Oh,
just
people ask me all the time, you know, could you play 4A? I said, I don't care. We won 3A.
Oh, that team could have.
That's all I care about.
Yeah, that
you
doesn't
know?
matter, but I think they could have. But yeah, it doesn't make any difference. I mean, you were in the class that, you know, you're we're in the class
with an exceptional group.
Yeah, and that's what happens. I mean, such a great story.
But we were lucky enough in the playoffs that our quick scoring continued.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And that certainly puts pressure on the other team. And if you can score early and make some big plays, you get them out of what they want to do, and maybe they've got to do things that.
Yes.
Yeah. So what a great run. So after the 2000 season, you coached in 2001.
Yeah.
And then you made a tough decision.
Well, if you want to let me whine for a little bit.
Whine.
You understand as a coach, and I know you've been through this, injuries wear on you.
They do.
And you see kids that have worked their tails off and they work and work and work, and then boom, like that, their season's over with. Well, starting about 95, we started going through a series of just losing kids left and right. 95 was the worst year we had. My starting fullback had about 1,000 yards a year before. He gets caught in the drug, alcohol situation, gets suspended for the whole season, and goes to West Frankfort and plays for West Frankfort. And our backup fullback, who would rush for like 1,200 yards the next year, his mother won't let him play.
Wow.
So I'm missing 2 class fullbacks, both are middle linebackers. We go 3-6, you know, and we're not good,
Yeah.
even though we lost 2 or 3 close games. And the next year, before the season ever starts, my best halfback tears his ACL playing baseball in the summer.
Yeah.
And then before the season starts, starting defensive back breaks his ankle. So that's 2 defensive backs also.
Right.
We go 5-4. The Moss kid I talked about that didn't get to play had like 1,200 yards. Well, you remember how good Murphy was.
I do.
We beat Murphy at their place 24-7, and they couldn't stop Moss and played great defense. He gets a hip pointer, can't play the next week. My starting quarterback gets knocked out in the first quarter. Massac hammers us at Massac. We end up going 5-4 and don't even make the playoffs, because that's back when you had to win at least 6. And so we get through that, and we have the good 97 season. Okay, so we're heading into 98. I've got 2 halfbacks coming back. Between them, they have 2,000 yards. Their senior year, they rushed for 280. One of them quits school. The other one gets hurt the first game of the season, doesn't play another down until the first round of the playoffs.
Wow.
And my son got hurt, missed two games, I guess, in the middle of the season. But we got healthy at the end, lucked out, had a good playoff run. We knocked off undefeated Benton the first round. We beat undefeated Newton the second round, and then got beat by a very, very good Nashville team at our place. And, frustrating loss, but you got to give them credit. They were a good ball club, and they end up playing for the state championship. And then we hit 99 that I talked about. We lose Brashear week 3. We lose both offensive tackles. And so 2000, hey, we've hit it now. We win the state championship, I got a decent group of kids coming back. Starting quarterback, first half of the Mount Carmel game, done for the season.
Oh, my.
2-way starter, led the team in interceptions the year before as a junior.
And he's gone.
Week 2, starting outside linebacker gets hurt. Week 3, the backup safety for Pilcher breaks his hand. He's done for the year. Week 4, second best halfback gets hurt. He's off and on the entire season. Play against a bad team, get hurt again, miss a good game. We end up going 4-5, lost 3 really, really close games. And it was just wearing on me.
Yeah, I don't think that's whining. I think that's just the reality that of something. I'm glad you shared that, because everything wears you out as a coach. The stuff you can't control.
Yeah.
If it's kids getting in trouble, kids getting hurt, things that are weather situations or stuff you'd have no control over, but you sit and worry about constantly.
Yes.
It does exhaust you. And people have no idea how much of that wears on you after a while. And so in 2001, you say, that's it.
I just felt like that was the time to really think about stepping away for a while and just kind of getting away.
Well, Al, when I stepped away after the 2022 season, I told someone, I don't know if I'm tired of being a head coach or I'm just burnt out.
Yeah.
And for me, I found out I was just done being a head coach. Maybe I was a little burnt out too, but I didn't know for sure. And then over time, I really haven't missed being the head football coach. I miss coaching, but not being the head football coach.
Yes.
Do you feel like more of yours was some burnout? And because you did come back a couple in 05 and 15, 16, you came back, but didn't stay long. Were you still wanting to do it, but still kind of tired of it?
It was a combination.
Yeah.
I stayed involved, of course.
Right.
When I got out in 01, when Coach Langley stepped up and took the job, they asked me if I'd stay on and coach freshmen.
Sure.
So I stuck around and coached freshmen the next 3 years. And then Greg was the head wrestling coach, and you know what kind of time that takes.
It does.
And I think he got the same thing. He just didn't like the idea of being a head coach and having that long wrestling season. So when he stepped down, Jay came to me and just said, hey, look, we need a head football coach, and nobody on staff wants the job. And it worked out great because I had coached these kids as freshmen.
That's true.
And I knew them really well. And again, super bunch of kids. I mean, very coachable, physical group. And we went 8-1, had a great season, lost to DuQuoin second week of the season, like 28-21. One first-round playoff game, and then Anna just took us apart in the second round. They had a great passing team that year, and we were not a good secondary team.
Yeah.
We were more of a run defender. And so we ended up 9-2, but had a great season.
Yeah.
Well, Jay had brought Jason Roper in. It's
Right.
the idea of him being the head coach eventually. And
Who played for you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
good halfback. And I said, okay, and I just stepped away and let Jason have the job, and I went back to coaching freshmen again.
Yeah.
And so I did that for a year under Jason, and then Jason decided that he wanted to go more to the spread stuff, and had another guy that he wanted to run the offense at the freshman level. And that was about the time Mike's starting the program at Vienna.
Right.
And I'm sitting there thinking, you know, part of the fun of coaching freshmen is running the offense. If
Yeah.
I'm not doing that, and Mike was down there by himself almost, you know. And so I just went down and started helping Mike when the first year, 07, 08, when he started the program. And it was an interesting experience.
I'm
let
sure
me
it
tell you.
was. And you've done a couple of offensive coordinator stints at El Dorado and at Vienna. Is that easy? Is it easy to do for you to step aside from the head coaching part? Did you just enjoy, hey, I'm just the offensive guy and I like that?
Well, yes and no. Well, when I first went to Vienna with Mike was still running the offense, okay? He was running single wing. So I just ran the defense.
Oh,
for him.
okay. Gotcha.
And of course, interesting story on that. The second year we were down there, we're playing freshman and a sophomore schedule. We're not playing varsity yet.
Gotcha.
So we played 16 games that year, all on the road.
Oh, my.
Because we didn't have
Yeah.
a home field. And we practiced in front of the high school because we didn't have a field.
Wow.
So like on a Monday night, we would practice the freshmen for like a half an hour, 45 minutes, get on the bus, go to the sophomore game. It was a different experience.
I'm
let me
sure
tell
it
you.
was, yeah. And then a couple of stints at El Dorado, or just a, yeah.
Yeah. Keep my time frame all together here. After I left Vienna, I came back to Harrisburg and coached freshmen again. And then I'm trying to keep I was so many different places there for a while.
Trust me, it's an awesome resume, but there's a lot in here. And so when did you went after Vienna, you end up coming back as a head coach again for 2 seasons at Harrisburg, am I right?
Yeah, but that was after I had gone to El Dorado.
I gotcha. Okay.
I went over there with Brandon Hampton.
Yes.
And Brandon did a really nice job.
did.
When he took over at El Dorado, they were bad.
He
and
did
I
a
mean,
good
really
job.
bad.
Yes, he did.
And he brought them up, and I went over with him, and him and Joe Clark, and good guys to work with, and we went 7-3 that year, made the playoffs, and then, as you said, in 15. They were coming off a 2-7 season,
Yeah.
and Jason had decided that he had other things. He wanted to see his daughter and everything, and they asked me to come back again. And again, I lucked out. I had a good group of kids, very coachable. I had a couple of really good running backs, wide receivers.
Yeah.
We went 7-2, won the conference, upset Murphy, and then Heron beat the crap out of us, you know, and got beat in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah. I want to, before we're done here, and we got about 5 minutes left, I'm told, and I want to just touch on a couple more things because you had great success in softball. You had a run in softball, 3rd place in state in 2006.
Yeah.
I coached softball for a year, not having near that kind of success, but I loved it. Was that something that was, hey, we need a coach, and you said, I'll step in and do it? Yeah.
Well, again, my daughter was involved.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And the coach had quit, and she was going to be a junior. Again, lucked out. Great group of girls. I mean, girls that loved softball, never had to worry about skipping practice or anything. They were there. So we're 30-0 the first year.
Woo.
And we get beat in the regional 2-1 in extra innings on a play at the plate, on a force out at the plate, where our photographer's got a picture, foot standing right in the middle of the plate, glove stretched out, the ball's about this close to the glove, umpire says safe.
Yeah.
So we, undefeated season, over.
Gone.
The next year, luckily, we didn't we didn't win, we won 30 games again, but we lost a couple more. We finished up 30-5, made it all the way to the state tournament, lost in the second round to Casey. That ended up being the state champion.
Great program, yeah.
And then won the third place game.
You baseball coach for 27 years.
Yeah.
You have a legendary reputation as a baseball coach. And I know people think of you in football terms. Maybe some have seen you in wrestling, involved in wrestling, but baseball is a big part of your love of sports.
Well, again, lucky, Jay Thompson, everybody knows Jay Thompson.
Of course.
He's had such a tremendous career at Harrisburg.
Yes.
And I was lucky after I got done with softball, my son was still playing baseball, and I caught on with baseball. And, Jay's been a great guy to work with and to learn from.
Sure.
And I've just been with him all these years, and again, good program, and it's something I really enjoy.
Just a great baseball tradition there, just like their football program and basketball program. Harrisburg is just synonymous with athletic success, and you are a huge part of that. And I know we had some, beforehand we talked about you're a baseball card collector, which is really cool. I understand you have quite a collection.
Yeah.
We talked about at one time you were a comic book collector and had some, but there's a sad side to that story that they didn't make it through. Your mom
out in the shed.
Didn't know the value of those, and you lost some pretty amazing comic books, some Fantastic Four first edition, right?
Yes.
And so that was a cool thing to share. But I love the fact that you're willing to come on and share these stories and talk about your career. And I love the fact you use the word luck a lot. And I do think that successful coaches know there's luck involved, Coach, but a lot of this is you, and I think great coaches sometimes make their own luck. And I want you to know that when people think of Southern Illinois football, Al Martin, Al Way, Mike Rude, those names are going to be there for many, many, many years to come, and you're right at the top of that list with those guys. And this resume of success has transcended, 4 decades, 5 decades almost. So congratulations.
Well, you know what they say, you got to be in the right place at the right time.
Well,
right?
it's true, and I think we both know the power of a great staff.
Yes.
Having great kids to coach, all that. But
Yes.
I also know the value of having a great man at the top, and you were that person. And congrats on a great career, continued success in baseball, and I appreciate your willingness to come on and share. It's been really
fun
good
to talk about all this.
I appreciate it, Al. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for watching again. I want to thank Coach for, what a great conversation on coaching and coaching history and his humbleness and his willingness to share. And I want to thank Swinford Media and Bill for being here today. And I want to thank Crown Brew, and I want to thank my buddies at Adrenaline again, and look forward to seeing you next week for another great conversation with a coach about what they do, how they do it, and revealing the heart of these individuals and just the depth, how much they care and how much they love kids and the coaching they do. And look forward to seeing you again. Thanks.